Hi everyone, welcome to my Aqua kitchen. Today I'm going to be making French bread. It's basically my go-to French bread recipe. So let's get started. In the mixing bowl I actually have yeast. I put in a tablespoon of yeast and I put in 1.5 cups of hot water from the faucet. And then I also put in 1 tablespoon of sugar. And then in a moment I'm going to be adding the flour, 1 cup at a time. Usually it can go anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 cups of flour, depending on what the dough wants to do. So I will slowly start adding in the flour. Alright, so here goes the first cup of flour. Make sure I get it all in there. And then, sorry, it's going to get a little loud in here. Alright, that's after a little while of letting it mix together. I'm just going to scrape down the sides just a little bit. Make sure I get all that flour in the bottom of the bowl. And now I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of the next batch of flour and then see how that incorporates together. By the way, I also have the dough hook attachment on the mixer. You can use basically your hands to do this, or a spoon until it gets a little less liquidy, but I highly suggest using a mixer if you have one. So this is after 1.5 cups has been incorporated in. As you can see, it's thickening up, and I'm going to put the other half of the 2nd cup of flour in there. Because as you put more flour in there, you definitely want to put half of it in at a time. That way you can see where you need to add more dough, or hold back on it because it's getting a little too floury. So we'll start this one up. And when it gets like this, you also want to make sure that you scrape down the flour on the side so that way it's all in there and you're not off on how much flour you need. So alright, and as you can see, the dough is starting to stick together and it's become very stiff. Alright, now I'm going to be adding we're on the 3rd cup of flour, but I'm only going to add in about half of that. So that's about half right there. And so right now we're at 2.5 cups of flour. And right now I actually have a teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to be adding that in actually right now so that can get all mixed through the dough. The reason why I didn't add it in the beginning is because you don't want the salt to go into the active yeast as it's trying to get together, because basically salt will kill the yeast. So it's starting to form together into a nice ball. When you take a look at it, you can see it's still you know, very, very sticky. You want it to be soft and a little bit sticky, but this is still needs more flour. So I'm going to add the rest of the cup in there. So basically we're going to be at 3 cups of flour in there. Alright, so you can see the dough is pulling back from the sides. It's still a little bit too wet, so I'm going to be adding in some more flour to this. Probably just like a half a cup, so that'll put me at 3.5 cups of flour. But you definitely want to put this in like 1/4 of a cup at a time. You don't want to put too much in. You want to put less than that in that I just did right there. And you want to definitely go real slow because you don't want it to fly out at you. So we'll see how this does, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so I believe the dough came out perfect. It's still sticky, but it's very incorporated the flour, so it's not like wet like it was. It's dry sticky. So what I'm going to do with this dough is I'm going to take it and I'm going to kind of shape it with my hands into a ball, and I'll show you what to do from there. Hold on just a moment. Alright, so I've taken the ball of dough and then just with my hands I've tapped it into a ball. So what you're going to want to do is have a bowl waiting that you've put oil in, olive oil or canola oil, and just generously grease the bottom of it because you're going to be sticking the dough in there, and you do not want it to stick because it's going to rise. So here's my bowl that I have generously oiled, and then you're going to take this dough and kind of rub it against the oil and then flip it. That way the top also is, you know, oiled, so it will not stick. I've had really bad problems about getting the dough out of the bowl because of the stickiness. But yeah. So you're going to want to put it in a warm place. You can turn on your oven to like 375, 350, and then once it gets really warm, you can turn it off or turn it down. You just need the dough in a warm place for it to rise. So you're also going to want to take some saran wrap and oil or spray the top so that way it won't stick. And that's what I have here. This is just going to sit here next to the oven, and it's going to rise, and I'll check on it in an hour to 45 minutes. So as you can see, the dough has risen. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually pull it out of the bowl, and you want to take some flour, and you want to flour whatever surface you're going to be working on. Just kind of start with like a light sprinkling of flour. You don't want your bread to taste very floury. So you're going to just dump it out of the bowl. And then we're going to put some on our hands too so it doesn't stick that much, and just kind of knead it. It's really soft and fluffy. So this is actually the dough and my rolling pin that I floured. And I'm going to take the dough and actually cut it up into 2 halves and divide it. So I'm going to get a big knife and kind of eyeball where I think the middle is. Should be right about there. So So I'm going to take the dough and I'm actually going to roll it into a long log shape, and I'm going to actually do that to both. And they should be about this size, so I'm going to do that with this second piece right here. So you try and get them as evenly as you can to look similar. So what we're going to do actually is take them and twist them together. So when they bake, they'll make a pretty twisting design like this. You're also going to want to get some water and water up these two sides together and fold it under. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So I'm just going to take the water and dip it on my finger like that, and then just make the dough stick together, and then take it and roll it kind of underneath. So when it bakes, it'll be this pretty swirl design. And then we'll just transfer it to a baking sheet. So as best you can, pick it up and quickly move it over to the baking sheet. And if you need to fix it a little bit, you can do that. And if they're coming apart a little bit, you can also put the water in the little crevice right there. Hold on. So after you're done putting it to the baking sheet, you're just wanting to go and take some olive oil. I have an olive oil canola blend right here, and you're just going to want to brush it all over the bread. What that's going to do is that's actually going to make a nice crispy coating for the bread. You don't want to do this after it's risen again, because it will deflate and fall down, and then you won't be able to get the bread actually back up. So after it's all oiled, you're going to want to put it in a warm place, preferably by the oven, and if it's not a really warm day or there's no heat there, it's fine to just turn the oven on and then stick a cloth on top of it, and just let it rest for another 45 minutes to an hour. Alright, so let's take a look. Ooh, it riz very nicely. So what I'm going to do is not try to jostle it or anything, because any kind of movement or very strong movement will actually make it deflate. So I set the oven at 375. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in the oven and let it bake for 25 to 35 minutes. Alright, so here is the bread all pulled out of the oven, and it's been cooling for about 15-20 minutes. It turned out really nicely, and it's a really pretty design. And if you wanted to, during the baking process, you could have stuck like herbs and like rosemary and thyme just to make it like an herbed bread, or you can sprinkle it on the top. But I like to eat my French bread with an olive oil dip. It tastes really good. And if you would like to know how to make it, just leave a comment in the bottom and I can make it and show you how I make it. If you've ever been to Johnny Carino's, this is really delicious and it tastes just like that. Well, thank you for watching my video. You have a wonderful day. Please comment, rate, and subscribe in the bottom. And I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day.